Rudy Giuliani's mental state has long been in question by those who knew him the best. New Yorkers, as Keith Olbermann attests in this YouTube video.
If there is one sort of sidebar non-Trump question I am asked more than any other about the Trump crime family, it's this. What happened to Rudy Giuliani? My short answer is, actually nothing. He's been like this for 25 years. In 1995 or 96, I was asked by the deputy mayor of New York, Fran Reiter, and the staff of the Baseball Hall of Fame to travel from ESPN in Connecticut, literally to the steps of City Hall in New York, to MC an event for what must have been 35 members of the Baseball Hall of Fame. The deputy mayor greeted me, approached me. The mayor was a few steps behind her, and as she began to introduce the two of us, she realized he had begun to wander off. Rudy, she bellowed, wandered back. This is Keith Olbermann from ESPN. He's going to be the MC. You'll have to introduce him after you speak. The mayor seemed to be having a hard time focusing on me. He extended a hand, missed mine, and then recalibrated, and as we shook hands, he grunted. The deputy mayor now roared at him. Rudy, you have to introduce him. His name is Keith Olbermann from ESPN. He's the MC. He turned and looked at her blankly and grunted again. Deputy Mayor Reiter now screamed at Giuliani, repeat it to me! He looked at me and looked back at her and said, his name is Keith Olbermann from ESPN. He's the MC. With annoyance, Reiter said, thank you! And Giuliani smiled and wandered off again. The mayor sat next to me, and Giuliani then leaned in and whispered, your name is Keith Olbermann from ESPN. You're the MC. I introduce you. I said something encouraging, and Giuliani smiled broadly like a child who was about to get some candy. And let me now turn it over to a good friend of mine and a great baseball man, and he looked at me and forgot everything. And finally, he looked the other way behind him where the deputy mayor was sitting with her head in her hands. Rudy Giuliani said loudly like this, what's his name? Who is he? And as the crowd, including some of my own friends, laughed, and some of the Hall of Fame players seated behind me gave me pats of consolation on my shoulder, Fran Reiter now screamed, Keith Olbermann from ESPN, the MC! You repeated it to me! Giuliani turned back to the crowd as if there would have been no way that they could have heard or seen any of that. And he said, let me turn it over to a good friend of mine and a great baseball man, Keith Olbermann, our NC from ESPN. But now I got up and told the crowd, sorry I'm late. I wasn't sure he meant me. So if you are saying to yourself, what on earth happened to Rudy Giuliani with that brown schwitz pouring down his face? I am saying to you, he has been this crazy for 25 years. You were just lucky enough to not have noticed.
See, I don't know what's scarier, the fact that Rudy Giuliani was like that in the mid-90s, or the fact that I wrote that joke in my opening monologue before I watched that video.
Oh, God. Hey, can I just say that I'm going to admit I haven't seen Keith Olbermann since he was on MSNBC, and he's a lot older, and now he actually looks like Anderson Cooper's straight uncle. You know what I mean? He's kind of changed, and he used to smoke a pipe. I think on the air maybe, but I don't know what he's smoking now.
No, that was Charles Nelson Riley on the Match Game.
Charles Nelson Riley. No, that's Paul Lind. I'm doing sorry. Anyway, that was revelatory.
Giuliani has this great reputation as being America's mayor because he was lucky enough to be the mayor of New York. And I say this seriously, when 9/11 happened and he was able to put on a suit and show up at funerals and people thought he was dignified. Yep. He didn't do a damn thing. All he did was wear a suit and show up.
Well, he was also like semi-articulate compared to George W. Bush, so he looked better by comparison to Bush in those early days. When, you know.
Prior to that, he was the Manhattan DA, and he got the credit as the head of the office for the work his staff did in working on organized crime matters. So people thought, oh, he's this great crime buster. He's always been nothing, as Keith said.
I think that whole story was a story about Rudy just doing a bit. Like, that's how I act when I have to host an open mic. I'm like, who are you again? I'm going to wander away. Like, that's what I do. That's exactly my hosting style when I'm running an open mic. So I think that was just Rudy's way of being like, I don't care who you are, not even enough to remember your name for 15 seconds.
Abby, you're not the mayor of one of the largest cities in the country, to be fair.
That is true. But when
you
you're running an
too,
open
me
mic, Tom, you might as well be the mayor of that bar.
Oh, and Abby was never impeached. She's
Not yet.
You're unimpeachable
Still
as
time.
my host. Yeah, I mean, I have to agree with Jeff. Like, Giuliani was always a proto-fascist. He did have that one moment where he looked good in the media, just after 9/11. But it shouldn't come as a surprise that he's, off the rails far right now. That wasn't a joke, just an observation.